I know that there is someone who is so angry at God, and you keep asking yourself, why me? God, why couldn't you just leave me alone? Why couldn't you just allow me to enjoy life? This is frustrating for me. I don't want to be in your will anymore. I just want to live my life and risk going to hell. And every believer has felt like that. Everyone who is walking with God has felt like that. So if you feel like that, that's normal. This is not an easy walk, especially if you are on a narrow path. When you can't move when you want to move, when you want things to go quickly, but God is saying, I just need you to wait. And the waiting period might be 2 years, 3 years, 10 years. You become so frustrated and you feel stuck and you feel trapped because you feel like you want to go do things, but God has clearly told you that He has shut the door. So what do you do when you're angry at the person that is causing your anger? You go to him and you let him know how you feel. That is not something that is so easy to do, but you have to train yourself to do it. Sometimes you're so angry that you just don't say anything. You cry, you yell, you just don't say anything. I remember times when I just did not have the words to say. I just cried. And I would feel God's spirit drop in my room, and then I would just feel peace. And then God would immediately speak to me. And in this life that we are living in, we are taught to look for comfort in different things. Look for comfort through sex, drugs, a relationship, through everything but God. But you have to learn that God is your comfort. And even though you don't want to talk to God, even though you're so frustrated and you just don't understand why your life keeps occurring the way it's occurring, God has to be your source of joy. God has to be your source of peace. I've had plenty of unusual ways that God has brought peace to me. This happened last year. I think it was in October. I was sitting at my front door and I was so angry at God. I was so angry. I was yelling. I was crying. I was fussing. And then as soon as I stopped, there was this cat. Now, this cat was my neighbor's cat. And as soon as I stopped yelling, this cat just walked up and he sat next to the door. I looked at the cat and then I just felt this peace. This peace just hit me. 1 second I was angry and in the next second I just felt peace. And what was so unusual was this cat was not afraid of me. This cat knew I was there. The cat would look in the door to make sure I was still there. And then the cat began to get closer to the door. And then he just laid there, licking his balls, but he just laid there. But I felt peace as the cat was there. And previously I talked about how God used a bird to speak to me. So God can use anything. How bizarre that is. God can use anything to bring you peace. God can use anything to tell you, I've heard you. And sometimes you just don't have the words to say. Sometimes you just sit in God's presence and you just cry. And for me, I like going to God for comfort because even though people have the right intentions, some people don't know what you go through. And for me personally, I don't speak to anyone who's not in ministry about my life and if I'm going through something, because when I speak to my friends who are in ministry, they can relate to what I'm going through. And it is so nice to hear someone and their perspective of how they went through it and then God helped them. And the reason why I say like it is so important for you to speak to someone who is called to do the same thing that you're called to do is because people won't get it. People will give you the wrong advice. They might say something to make you angry. They might, they might say things with intentionality, but in all honesty, people just don't have the right words to say compared to God. So for me, you have to allow God to be your comfort, and you have to speak to people who are called to do the same thing you're called to do. Or if you're married, and you're a husband, you speak to another young man who's married because he understands your struggles. You can't go to your marriage problems to your single friends because they're not going to understand that. They're not living with a woman. They're not communicating with a woman like you are. They're not living with a woman 24/7. They don't understand the marriage life. So whatever it is that is stressing you about, you have to go to your friends, to the people, to the mentors that are going through the same thing that you are going through. And it gives you peace to know like you're not alone, because when you are in that dark place, you tend to feel alone. You tend to feel like no one is listening. But that is so far from the truth. The enemy would try to plant that seed of loneliness, but you're not alone. You have God to talk to. You have people to talk to. But you just have to extend a hand and allow them to speak to you. Allow them to give you words of comfort, because it's not easy. Life itself is not easy. You are a human. You are going to go through days. You're going to have weak moments. But you have to learn how to allow God to be that comfort. No one else can be that comfort but God. You have to choose joy every single time. You have to learn how to get yourself out of the pit. And I know that is hard. We as humans were trained to throw pity parties, to be okay in our pity parties, to say, oh, I'm allowed to be upset today. Yes, allow yourself to have that moment, but don't stay in that moment. Get up and keep going. And that's all you have to do. Get up and keep going. When you don't know what God is doing, get up and keep going. When you want to quit and give up, get up and keep going. Even when you don't want to, get up and keep going. Even when you want to quit this God thing, get up and keep going. And we all get it. Sometimes you have to speak to a seasonal Christian and say, hey, this is what I'm struggling with. What do you advise for me to do? Because they've been through it. They've had plenty of years in their walk with God. And they've been through a lot. So talk to the elders. Talk to mentors. Talk to people who are in the same field as you. But most importantly, talk to God. When you're angry at God, learn to speak to Him. Learn to hear His voice. Learn to allow God to be that peace and that comfort that you need. So I just pray over you. I just pray that God's peace will hit you if you are angry. That you will allow yourself to have a moment to feel what you are feeling. And just go to God and say, God, I am not okay. I just pray that you will learn how to hear God's voice for yourself. And that you will experience the peace of God that you have been reading about and that you have been hearing about. God loves you. He has a plan for you. All of this is not in vain. And you just have to learn how to trust Him. Trust Him with your life. Trust Him with your heart. Trust Him, because He will make a way when there is no way. He loves you. And just allow His peace to cover you. allow it to hit you. Allow him to speak to your spirit. Allow him to tell you that everything is going to be okay. I feel him. I feel God. He knows your heart, and he knows you're tired. He knows you don't want to do this anymore. He's seen when you cried. He's seen when you said that you couldn't do it anymore. He's seen that suicide attempt. He knows your heart. He knows your heart. He knows your heart. He knows your mind is telling you no, but your heart is saying yes. He knows your heart. And he's saying, keep going. I'm going to show you the better of this, but I just need you to keep going. You want to give up, but allow me to be the answer. Allow for me to be your peace. I hear you. I see you. And I love you. I hope you have a good day. Be blessed. Bye, guys.